up right now. We should be going live soon on Facebook. With Facebook, obviously, as you guys know, it takes a second for everything to initialize.
Sure.
And everything.
Okay.
Yeah, we are. Looks like we are live. Why don't you guys? Let me start the broadcast.
All right.
Why don't we get started? We've got lots of questions lined up to be answered. So why don't you guys? Yeah, let's get going.
Hi, everyone. This is Roz McCarthy, and you are with CannaTalk with Roz. I want to just say happy Friday to everyone. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to come and sit and learn. I have an awesome guest for today. Before I introduce our guest, I want to introduce, we got Eric Range, my co-host. Eric.
What's going on, everybody? How y'all doing out there?
Mr. Eric, how you doing?
What's going on, David?
So we got Eric Range. Eric Range, as a reminder, is the co-founder and CEO of Art 420. He is also Minority for Medical Marijuana, our board chair. He is a prolific in understanding the industry and business development. He's going to be a solidified co-host on CannaTalk with Roz. I believe it's good things that happen when you pair up in two. We have been in this journey together from the start. I can't think of anyone better to work with. So thank you, Eric, for gracing me and just believing in what we got going on here.
Absolutely. Again, thank you for all that you do for the industry, being that trailblazer. And, it has been an honor since 2016 to work with you, man. And, I just look forward to this new endeavor with CannaTalk with Roz. I'm excited about being your co-host and having some good conversations and making sure that, communities who are typically left out of this conversation, that they have an outlet to get their questions answered and meet some of the folks in this space that are moving and shaking. So again, thank you. And, thank you to the rest of the CannaTalk with Roz family for having me.
Absolutely. Now, the thing you got to do, guys, if you're on this call, if you're on this Facebook live stream, make sure you share it. Make sure you tell people about it because it's going to be hot and heavy today. We got so many good questions. We got so much good stuff we're going to cover. First and foremost, let me introduce you to David Beckford. David Beckford is the Minorities for Medical Marijuana chapter president of Missouri. He was based in St. Louis. He's now in Minneapolis, but when he started out, he was in Missouri. And our topic today, we're going to talk about cannabis advocacy and engagement. How do you become an advocate and engagement to help further your business? And so I want David to introduce himself, and I'm going to ask him some questions about how he got into the industry and how he was able to leverage chapter president for M4MM, but leverage his business or leverage himself to advocate. He's going to tell you about Missouri is going to go to the polls and vote on Amendment 2 next Tuesday. And it's so critical that if you're in Missouri, you vote yes on 2. But David, introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what's going on in Missouri. You're on, David.
Well, again, I'm Dave Beck. Can you hear me?
Yep, we hear you great.
Okay, great. I'm the co-president of M4MM in Missouri. I'm also the founder of a marketing agency, national marketing agency called Bannister Television. And it was just a simple matter of connecting the dots on a community health-based initiative and understanding, who are all the key stakeholders that were affected by the potential legislation and medical marijuana coming to our state. And so we kind of threw ourselves into it, if you ask me, just for the simple fact that as we began to research and look at some of the advocacy organizations that look like and cater to people of color and people that look like you and me, whether they were African American, men and women, entrepreneurs, women, other ethnicities, and all the above. There was this shift. They've been trying to get medical marijuana going on in Missouri for years and years and years, but it was never making it to the ballot. So, and I believe the reason why it wasn't making it to the ballot is because right then and there, Missouri is a very conservative state, but at the same time, there was this lack of inclusion, right? So they were only focusing on a small subset of the community as a whole to drive something that was going to impact an entire state. So I believe New Approach Missouri, they shifted their focus. They reached out to the community. They actually connected to us, and I connected them to clients and community organizations that we were working with. And that's how we really actually got started with M4MM and advocacy for African Americans in Missouri. So, a lot of opportunities that have come out of it. You know, as a business owner, I look at it from a couple different perspectives. One, I'm a human being, right? And I looked at the national trend as it was related to African Americans and cannabis from a policing standpoint. And I personally know people in our own chapter who, you know, are ex-felons now because of being caught in the war on drugs and the aftermath of that. And M4MM stood for the decriminalization. And so it just kind of, that alignment was perfectly there for us. So that was one factor of it. But then we looked at, you know, the return on investment of getting connected to that industry. You know, what would it look like, you know, if medical marijuana was available in Missouri? And after we did this kind of critical assessment based on the they're expecting 150 to 200,000 patients to get connected to the program in the first couple of years. We did our due diligence around the country and started looking at other programs and trying to see, even in our neighboring state, Illinois, which got off to a slow start. You know, after 3 to 4 years, they still only had 42,000 people connected to the program. We were like, well, how are they going to make this goal of getting to 200,000 people? And so after really examining the ballot initiative from New Approach Missouri, it was the only one that had low access to entry, if you will. And as any entrepreneur knows, we're doing risk management and risk assessment all day long, right? And so the barrier to entrance is the number one thing. How much money do I got to spend to be a part of this industry? Whether it's, you know, vertical integration, or if I was just going to niche, you know, provide products or growing, all of the above. If I could bring the expertise together to even participate, you know, what is that going to cost me? And so looking at barrier, opportunity for entrance, and then looking at ongoing, you know, obligations, you know, and operations costs, Amendment 2 made the most sense. Okay. And then after that, you know, once you figured out how much, you know, money it's going to take to get into the industry, you know, you got to kind of decide, what do you want to do in the industry based on that expertise and based on the resources that were available to us. So me having a 26-year.
So I'm going to stop you right there for a second, David. Stop right there, because I want you to explain to folks how. So what he's saying to you guys is that New Approach Missouri is a political action committee. That political action committee said, I want to bring in medical marijuana to the state of Missouri. There were other different people that want to bring in something, but David chose to align himself and offer up himself to work with New Approach Missouri, basically by saying they approached him, but it came all together saying, listen, if you show more inclusion, and if you have a conversation with me and I can show you how to attract the African-American community to get on board, we can get this passed. But also David became an influencer. He became someone that in the state of Missouri now, he can call on New Approach. There's other different folks that are running things, that are pushing the agenda forward. And now he can say that he was a part of the initial group of getting this, if this passes on next Tuesday, of getting this passed. So the other piece of it is that now that he's entrenched, tell them about what your business is, Dynasty Television, and how you able to leverage that for a contract for yourself already, and how you see yourself expanding after this medical marijuana program gets in. Because I want people to see how you take your own business that's not cannabis related and how you flipped it.
Right. Well, and that was my second point. You got to figure out what you want to do based on your expertise and based on the resources that you have available, whether through partnership or your own. Me, I am the founder of Bannister Television, which partners with my own marketing graphics company. We've been in business for 26 years, but long short of it, we built this national network of media companies that reach over 14 million people on radio, terrestrial, streams, all of the above, primarily targeting the African American community. So I'm a marketing guy. So how are we going to penetrate into this industry? Well, based on the research that we did, this initiative, in my opinion, was no different. It's a political initiative, but it's no different than any other nonprofit-based initiative, like a Proposition 1 or 2, if you will, for schools or enhancements and improvement. And the biggest thing was they're going to require education dissemination. Most grants on any kind of level, is programmatic on one side, but also information dissemination. How many people can you get the information out to? So it was just a natural fit for Dynasty to take its national model and bring it back down to a local model where we were reaching almost 1 million people through 3 radio stations that were affiliates, about half a dozen social media influencers, if you will. And now that gave us the ability 24/7 to put out information about not just Amendment 2, but education about the entry points, everything that we talked about that's related to the cannabis industry as it is emerging in Missouri, but happening all around the country as well. Now we position ourselves as this information dissemination company, and so if you want information, it's about application processes, what the timeline is going to look like. All we're doing is aggregating and pushing that information out through social media, radio, streaming platforms, and everything else. So we knew our niche, and we knew that we could leverage that because no matter what, I always tell people, regardless of whatever industries you ever get into, you're going to have to communicate and do community-based engagement. And so it was just a natural fit for us as a marketing agency to be able to leverage that. One of the key things that we did to even ensure that was going to happen, we met with New Approach Missouri, and then I went out and found what I call the influencers. In most elections, and I hate to say it, but I'm gonna keep it real today, African Americans are kind of left out of the story. Most political polls and advocacy groups, when they're thinking about the African American community, we're either going to have low voter turnout, if we turn out at all, right? And with that, we are going to vote a certain way. And I wanted to impress it upon New Approach Missouri that was not the case here when it came to medical marijuana in Missouri. This was we as an African American community, we are well connected throughout the state, that we knew all of the influencers. So we brought all these politicians together, right? Freedom Inc. in Kansas City, and community organizations like the NAACP and the Urban League in St. Louis. These are organizations that you cannot leave out of the equation. So we brought them to the table and wrote what we considered, we thought through the long game that, yes, this is going to pass. We wrote the community benefits agreement with New Approach Missouri that pushed in there the information dissemination contract that not only would a Dynasty Television participate in, but African American media across the board in partnership with organizations like Normal and New Approach and all, and Department of Human Services and all of the above. So we thought about it and wrote a contract with ourselves in it a year ahead of the election, because and that's the way you have to think through these things. Again, what resources and what information, how can we plug ourselves into this at a low point of acquisition or interest, if you will, and what impact could we make? And so you call that influence. I call that leveraging the resources that was just readily available, because every one of those politicians and every one of those community organizations, everybody has a stakehold in this emerging industry that they're promising will be worth about $500 million a year annually in the next 2 years.
And David, speaking directly to that point in terms of, I agree with you that all of these traditional institutions that have been designed to, make it easier for minorities to exist in any industry also have a stake in this industry. So you mentioned the NAACP, the Urban League, and those folks. And obviously there in Missouri, you guys have had great success in having them at the table and being a part of the discussion. Talk to us about how you got those folks to the table. Talk to us about how you overcame some of the fears and the hesitation from some of the traditional groups, because I know that you probably faced some of that. We certainly faced it here in Florida, where the attitude was more so we'll wait and see, we'll let it pass and become legal, and then we'll respond, versus taking a proactive approach and actually shaping the whole conversation. So talk to us about what was that message? What was it that they needed to hear in order to recognize that they had a place and a seat at the table?
That's a great question. We, again, many times we're either left out of the conversation, and many times that's on us. Okay, we're not going to the powers that be and asking, or not asking, but demanding inclusion. Give me the information that I need so I could be a part of this. Tell me where my tax dollars are going to go, right? So I had to take a snapshot. And the only politicians that we brought to the table were politicians that had a record of creating jobs on any kind of level, for people of color, politicians that were linkage to unions that were forward thinking, if you will, and we went to one politician that was connected to the farming community, because we already knew that the hemp legislation was being jostled around for the last couple of years, but now the timing was right. So research, and aligning yourself with the right people, right? With the politicians who either have some kind of stake based on their constituency base, right? Because if you can get all of these farmers employed all of a sudden, and you're a part of that union, then you're looking like a superhero. And I've heard the stories around the country of NAACPs and church-based organizations not getting involved. Well, I don't know, maybe I was lucky, but our president in St. Louis and our East St. Louis president as well, they were just, again, forward thinkers. I never forget Mr. Pruitt. Adolphus Pruitt is the president of the St. Louis branch. And one day he called me out to come to a quick meeting about they were planning, some strategies for NAACP. And of course, we do some work for them. But the conversation shifted at dinner that night, and he wanted to go into CBD oils. So he wanted to use Dynasty to promote his CBD oil practice, because I'm telling you, this guy's brilliant. And so he was the one that really kind of pushed the envelope. And I was like, well. And I asked him the tough questions. We are, the NAACP, the average median age is 40 plus, maybe 65, 75 years old. How is that going to be received by this group of 1,000 African Americans in St. Louis? And he was like, this is about human rights, right? And we're going to push that agenda no matter what. This is the best agenda for African Americans at that time. And so through leadership and just perfect alignment, we were able to get connected to the people, the politicians, the community leaders who people follow. And they were forthright in their thinking, or forward thinking, if you will, to say, not only are we going to participate, but here's the blueprint of what it looks like. And again, I call that leveraging, right? And so now we're going after the African American church community, okay? Because with the church community, you still, the church has changed, and its influence over the African American population, throughout the years. But hey, we still got mega churches where thousands and thousands of people are going. And I always ask pastors, I said, this is not about smoking weed, right? This is not about, negative stereotypes. I said, if somebody drills something in your head for 80 plus years, of course you're going to think it's bad, right? And so now we're positioned to let them know and let their parishioners know, hey, you got, maybe 20% of your population of your church, the people that give every Sunday, that tithe every day, these people are 60 plus. These people, based on diet, based on their health, they're the most likely
current medications,
require medications. And these are the same people out of the, I forgot, was it 42,000 some plus odd people, maybe a little less than that. I think it was 42,000 in Illinois who are suffering and overdosing on opioids. Because opioids, it didn't have a color on it, right? White,
right.
Black, and blue, people were dying, right? And so we had some pastors that understood it, not as and stop the demonization of the plant, if you will, and looked at it from economics and looked at it from a health standpoint for 20%. You're talking about 20% of your congregation that's going to. That's a lot of people, and that's a lot of money that's coming through that church. So again,
and I think it's also not even just from the health side of it. When you think about from the social justice side of it as well, is their congregation who's had their sons locked up, who's had their sons killed because of this war on drugs. And I think it's important that you do recognize who you're speaking to and what is the message that they need to hear, from the politicians to the advocates to the business owners to the faith leadership. They all need to hear something different to understand their place in this industry.
You got we call it a critical assessment analysis, if you will, of your VIP customer. And so the churches were our VIP customers. We got to figure out, what do you want and how do you benefit in this emerging industry? And that was with everybody. So we took that same approach with the membership themselves. We gave everybody a 20 question survey. So as they walk through the door, what do you want to do? Oh, you're a chef and you want to make cookies and brownies, and you have a brand, and now you want to get that brand connected to the potential 160 dispensaries that are going to be in Missouri. So we had to analyze everybody on an individual basis and understand what they do. Now you can see the direct correlation, me and my firm being an interlocutor, if you will, and connecting that chef with their products, with the branding that they were going to need to market to 160 dispensaries, and I'm telling them, hey, we'll give you a 10% return. So if we can get your product into 16 dispensaries, then you're doing well, right? And that additional revenue base, is meaningful to a small entrepreneur. So that's just a chef. But we started looking at, after the critical assessment, you got people who own home health care organizations. We had doctors, we have lawyers, all of these people who are educators, information disseminators, brand ambassadors for us, but all of these people that want to be a part of the industry. And no matter what, from a marketing standpoint, they were all going to have to connect the dots. So again, through leveraging and or influencing, it's easy for me to take a Justin Mason, if you will, as an attorney and connect him to an NAACP initiative. And now he becomes a panelist on their health-based initiative where they're going to be talking about medical marijuana, right? Justin ends up picking up new clients because all of a sudden the NAACP is sending them, sending referrals and all of the above. And so again, it's nothing new that we've done. It's just leveraging and understanding the value systems of the people and that are connected to this industry, if you will.
Yeah. Good. And so E, please go ahead. E.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, if we have any, local leaders who are, in the faith-based community, folks who are a part of your NAACPs, your Black caucuses, your urban leagues, if you're on, listening, talk to us. Let us know what you need to hear. Let us know what some of your skepticisms are so that we can speak to those and help you to understand your role in this industry and how you can be a platform and a voice for others to get into the space as well.
Yep. Powerful story. One of our members, Bishop Lee, he he was one of the first people to join M4M in St. Louis. And the reason why is because he's got a powerful story. You mentioned about his church is located in North St. Louis, right? North St. Louis is the underprivileged side with lack of resources, all of the above. That's where they shelter Black people, if you will. But, very wonderful community. But we can understand the economic divide of some of these organizations. So high crime rates, all of the above. His own son had been in prison for drug trafficking, right? Brilliant young man. Now about 34 or so. But now that he's out, can't get a job, right? Now that he's out, he's looked down upon, if you will. And so you could multiply that by 10 other people that were all in his congregation. And he was connected to 15 other churches that all had the same issue. So you got unemployable or underemployed people that were in the church community beyond. So we talked about the health aspect. Now we talked about putting people to work, right? Because unless the minimum wage increases, it's hard to kind of take care of your family on, $9 to $10 an hour, right? And so now you're talking about people who have expertise in the industry, who, if he could convince his own pastoral community to buy retail space and he said, I don't want to touch flower. I'm doing the McDonald's approach. I'm going to own the property and own the land, and I'm going to lease it out to people. And so, and then they're also doing the same thing on the hemp side. And so I've got a client for us on the hemp side because they own, 8 acres of land in Illinois, right? And so there are many different approaches without, having the stigma of I'm a pastor and I'm selling drugs, right? So owning, from the real estate, from the security, from the employment, all of the above, and it empowers. Once you got people working in your church, you got motivated tithe givers. You got motivated people who will get out and do some good in the community.
Well as working in this industry, most people become advocates. I think by default, because the laws are still being shaped, working in this industry makes you an advocate. And so if we get those people in those communities employed, we not only get them, employed and bringing in tax dollars and allowing them to support their families, but now we're creating new stewards of this entire industry altogether.
100%. I've talked to other. I'm sorry, Roz, you had a question.
No. I was just gonna, because I gotta wrap us up so we can get some questions in here. Yeah. But I want to make sure I wrap up everything that you hear, and you're hearing from Dave and you're hearing from Eric. And the number one thing that I want you to gather from David is the fact that he was able to go in, and I call it leveraging, whatever you want to call it, but he saw an opportunity where he's like, listen, we got to have a voice. I'm going to be that Pied Piper from my community. I'm going to advocate. While I'm advocating, I'm also going to talk about my own business and creating some opportunity for my business. And so with Dynasty Television, he took someone that says, I want to get in and be able to have a edible line, and said, well, if I can help you to market yourself and get an edible line, he's going to get a percentage of that revenue, but he's going to actually be able to open up doors that they weren't able to open up. So that's just some prime examples. And I want you guys just to see how the advocacy and the engagement on the early on start. So if you're in a state that's thinking about going medical or thinking about going recreational, especially if they're thinking about going recreational, you guys need to find out who your local, find a local Infra-MM chapter, email us, ping us, send us a Facebook message, find out if we have an Infra-MM chapter president there, and we'll help you out. But if you don't, find the local group that's pushing for that amendment, because they need us. They need our vote in order to get it passed. Hear me clear. Florida passed at 71%. Tell them, E, and they need our vote from the Black community in order to get a all adult use bill in any state. Therefore, if you're the one that's directing and you're involved in them engaging with communities of color, then you go and you also talk about not only engagement and advocating for adult use, but you also talk about how your business, what you do in your business and how you want to intersect your business with the opportunity if it comes to pass.
Mhm.
Yeah, Roz, I when I was listening to David, I actually heard so many parallels in your story here in Florida. Even before you and I met, we didn't even realize we lived in the same city, but someone saw us online and saw that we were both kind of working towards the same goal and made sure that we got connected. But when I met Roz, one of the things that really that I was drawn to was the fact that she had the foresight to partner with the group that actually wrote the constitutional amendment here in Florida. And so she was there, David Beckford, if you will. How do you get into our communities? How do you engage our communities to be a part of this discussion? Because again, you can't get the 71.3% without us.
Mm-hmm. That's true. That's true. That's true. We are the margin, is what they say, right?
Exactly. And so, Celeste, I did see your question. I just responded to it as well. We do have a very active chapter there in New Jersey. Shoot us an email, and we'll definitely get you connected with BG. And we have a good group up there: BG, Leo, Ronnie. They are a powerhouse of a group, and we definitely want to get you plugged in with them up there.
Exactly. So we're going to open it up for questions. Dave, I want you to stay on with us because I think folks have questions. I want you to weigh in on some of the questions that may come across or what have you. We have some questions from last week that came across. This is your time to be able to just be able to ask your questions, be able to have a conversation. Charles, if you want to open up and kind of throw some things out that you have, that's perfect. And we can go from there.
Sounds good. Yeah, I will. Right before I start questions, we do have some people who are actually enrolled in the class. So if you are an attendee in the class and you want to ask a question, please raise your hand and we'll have you on for audio so that either Roz or Eric or David might be able to provide some more personalized feedback for your scenario. So Roz, we got a list of questions. I don't know if you heard, but last night, Deshita gave a web class and there were almost 600 people on for a long time. And we still have probably over 100 questions that we didn't get to. So we thought we would just save a few for you guys. Have some fun.
All right, let's go for it.
Let's start with the first one. So we have Jerry McClellan asking this question. I would like to know if it is a good idea to purchase a pre-existing cannabis business. I've seen a few listed for sale on business broker sites.
Okay. Now, I think that if you look at, there's two things you need to look at. You need to look at asking questions as to rationale as to why are they selling right now. You need to look at financials. You need to look at the legislation and the law, and then also look at, the cost of your product. If you see that the price point of the product in the state of, let's say, Oregon, where you were able to get, let's say, an ounce for, I'm throwing around, $80, but now an ounce of your medicine is now $35. Well, what that means to me is that you have an infiltration of a lot of product in the marketplace, and you may have a lot of dispensaries in the marketplace, which, I will tell you, dispensaries and having a dispensary is not a short game. This is not a get in, get rich, you're going to be making a ton of money overnight. This is a long range game. This is a game where you're looking at, it'll take you 2 to 3 years before you start seeing that you're earning a nice sizable profit. And even after that, there's so many challenges on the regulatory side that you have to be so competent and have such a great team working around you. And I don't know if Eric, if you have anything that you want to share, or Dave.
I will say that I get a lot of, unsolicited requests about if I know any buyers for, current licenses and operational businesses in the space. I definitely think that it's something to consider, something to look at. But if you're going to go that route, I strongly encourage you to perform a lot of due diligence and to if you don't have that expertise to do that type of research on a company, to connect with a legal staff or cannabis attorney or somebody who can really go through the ins and outs of that particular business. There are a lot of businesses out here who are doing well. They're seeing returns, they're having profits, but then something on the back end may not be the way that you need. They may be overburdened in debt, or they may be, have other issues, in terms of keeping a lease with their landlord. And, like Roz said, the regulatory, framework can change in a state like California that may end up costing you a lot of money just to stay in business. And a lot of people have folded because of it. So I agree with Roz. Is something that you have to look at, not for the short term. You have to look at that one as a long-term play, but doing as much due diligence as you can, looking at, some of the, competition and, the landscape in that particular locality or, state, but, do your due diligence on that. And if you don't have that expertise, hire somebody.
Right. Exactly. Our next question.
Wow, that was a great answer. Let's move on to the next one. This is J.I. is asking, can you talk about do any of you, or can you expand on getting grower rights? And I'd say we could answer this question from both. He wasn't specific, but we could answer it from both marijuana and hemp, because I think they're both very interesting.
Right. So for everyone who's here and you're looking to grow, you're looking to cultivate, first, I highly recommend, if you haven't done it before, take a class. We are actually working with Oxford University to look at horticulture classes, but do an apprenticeship. Look at this from that standpoint. If you're the one that actually want to cultivate the plant with your hands and understanding the ins and outs of cultivating. I will tell you this, that in order to get a license for cultivation of cannabis is highly competitive. And the hemp licensing process right now is still up and going. So you have states like South Carolina, you have states like Colorado that have hemp licensing that you can go after. Missouri? And so you have to decide on if you want to do that. And Missouri as well, is that coming up on board?
Yeah.
So what I would recommend is either there's two plays. If you have land and you are someone who's a horticulturist or a cultivator and you want to do it, absolutely go for it. Do your research, make sure you're trained, have a consultant that's working with you if you don't know all the ins and outs. If you're someone that has land, but you don't know for sure if you want to be able to farm that land, we actually have a cooperative that we're putting together where you can actually lease your land out to the co-op. And then once we cultivate hemp, once hemp comes to fruition, we get a license and we cultivate on your land. Basically, not only do you get a lease payment, but you get a profit sharing. And that's something to think about. It's basically an urban farmer collective. And I'm starting that from my perspective with our VP of hemp technology, Jackson Garth, because we have too many people that have land and they don't want that land to go to waste, but they want to be in the hemp industry. Dave, I see you shaking your head. Any thoughts?
Well, I mean, people that have land right now, my in-laws in Atlanta, Georgia, they have tons of acres and we're growing Christmas trees, right? And so we're looking at other opportunities to get out there. And just speaking about Missouri, the hemp legislation has already passed. Right, and so now they're looking to build the partnerships and get people involved as well. And so through M4MM, I wanted to reach out, so we can start creating some of those partnerships and bring, interested parties, if you will, to Missouri. The hemp is probably exploding, will explode faster than the medical marijuana industry in Missouri.
Absolutely. So if you're interested, look for it right now. This is where time is now.
Roz, I actually kind of interpreted that question a slightly different way. When it said, how do you get hemp rights, I immediately began thinking about, or how do you get grower rights? I began thinking about, are they speaking about, are they perhaps in a state where they don't have any legalization on board right now, whether it be medical, recreational, or through hemp, and how to go about that. And I think that's partly what we started the discussion with today in regards to becoming an advocate, leveraging your business to help shape the regulatory structure in your state, and being an influencer there in your state. So I kind of just interpreted it a little bit different, and I guess I would answer the question in terms of how do you go about getting those rights from that perspective, just participating in the legislative process. If you can, if you live in your state's capital, or you can visit your state's capital during the legislative session, show up, talk to the senators and representatives who are hearing it, assembly people who are actually, actively working it, who are on committees that, have bills that are addressing it, coming by, speak to those folks. And if you aren't able to attend in person, you can go on many websites. I know here in Florida, you can sign up for updates, and you can follow and track a particular bill. And every time that something happens to that bill, someone offers an amendment, a vote is held, or it moves to a new committee, you'll get an email telling you exactly about what's happening in there, so you can stay in tune and participate that way, and email and call your legislators. But at the end of the day, you have to be a part of the discussion, and and that means whether you can't be there physically, be there virtually if you can, but participate in the discussion.
Those legislators, their job is to serve their constituencies. So we found the state senator Carla May that was connected to the farmers in Missouri, right? And so we could have reversed the role. We could have gone to the farmers leagues first, and then leverage them to get the Carla May on board, if you will. So you got to be active. You got to get out there and just connect the dots. Understand, you're a grower. You got to talk to farmers. You're a grower. You got to, whoever's connected to the growing industry, the suppliers, all of the above, those are the people that you want at the table when you go talk to the politicians. Don't go by yourself.
Absolutely.
Right. And I would like to say that Carla May is a African-American woman who is she's a state rep, correct?
Yes, absolutely.
David?
State senator. Mm-hmm.
State rep in Missouri. She's very engaged. You guys you'll be surprised that there are legislators in your area that are very engaged. And all you got to do is just kind of send an email and say, listen, I want to get engaged. I want to get involved. I need your help. So Charles, next question.
Great. Let's go on to our next question. These are wonderful responses. We have Tasha Yana Young. I like this one. I'm a chef. How can I get into this industry and bring my craft into a non-legalized state?
Say it again now. One more time. I'm sorry.
No problem. As a chef, what would be a great way to start in this industry and bring my craft to a non-legalized state?
So if you are a chef and you are looking to get into the industry in a non-legalized state, the first thing I would do is follow a trend or follow a chef who's in a legalized state, because if it's legal in another state, not legal in your state yet, don't try to read. There is a young lady by the name of Andrea Drummond, Drummond. She's an African-American female. She's a well-known cannabis chef out of California. So if you look up cannabis, edible chef, things of that nature, look at their path, see what they were doing, see how they got into the industry. That's number one. Number two is you want to find out how soon or what is your state looking to create legislation to open up the industry from a medical perspective or from a adult use perspective. That's number two. So the whole title of our talk today is get involved, get engaged, advocate. These are solutions, guys. I need you to use these solutions. When you come back to me, I want you to come back next time and say, hey, Roz, I tried to give the governor's office or I tried to give my legislator a call and I got this back in the email. What do I do next? Okay. I need you to take these tidbits that we're sharing and start to apply them, because if you apply them, I think you'll be surprised how some things will open up for you. So number one is do your due diligence, find some chefs that are well-known, especially if they're African-American in the industry, follow their path, do some research, see exactly how they've specialized and look at that. Number two, if you are a chef, if you're in a non-legal state, find out what the laws are saying and what's coming to the book soon. Number three, You want to find, your meetups, find individuals who are also looking to get into the industry, folks that are, that are thinking about wanting to have dispensaries and cultivate, because you start networking and forming relationships with those folks. And I don't know if Eric or David, if you have anything else you want to add to that, those would be the first three things I would think about.
No, I think you hit it squarely on that one. I answered a question at the same time over in the chat. I think it's kind of, they're not a chef, but they're looking to start a business. They don't have any capital. I think really and truly, when you're trying to break into this industry, what I've found is, most of the people with money right now have very little interest in investing in things that haven't been proven, that haven't begun to generate some type of revenue. So, my advice to anybody, whether you're a chef or, anyone else trying to start a business, begin by creating a sound plan and implementing that on a small scale so that you create that proof of concept. And then from there, attract the VCs and the investors who are, interested in the fact that you can be scalable and that you've already have a proof of concept.
Right. This as a chef, this might be an opportunity for you to do a partnership with someone else in a legal-based state. Okay. And so you got to go and connect the dots and understand who are those chefs in the Californias and the Colorados and the Nevadas, now Massachusetts, all of these places that are in your same industry, and reach out to them and form relationships. Go there. Literally go there. It's worth the investment of time. You can do product sampling, without being in the underground market. And then from there, now you've got a proven opportunity to say, hey, I'm working with this chef at this restaurant, these level of distributors in a legal-based state. There is nothing preventing you from getting out of your non-legal state and going over from Missouri to Illinois right now, which is a 1-hour drive at best, and partnering with like-minded individuals.
Absolutely. And I think, you touched on something that we have to not be afraid to create national brands. And, that can be a scary endeavor, and it does take, some coordination. It takes some leveraging of resources and the whole nine. And, in the absence of capital, it can be, difficult. But I think Minorities for Medical Marijuana, is a pipeline that connects you to folks in other states that makes, that a lot more attainable and easier to do than, in a lot of other industries, and absent a group like Minorities for Medical Marijuana. I've been able to go to other states and have people already on the ground who've been kind of carrying my banner before I get there. So when I get there, I'm not a brand new entity, if you will, but, someone who's connected to someone, locally, grassroots wise there as well. So I think, our organization gives us that ability to connect across state lines. And if you're in a state where things are moving slow, or you don't have the laws in place, and you want to get started, having a proven model in another state will make it even easier for you in your state once your state gets online. So consider how you, you position yourself, not just in your state, but if there are opportunities to do so in other states as well.
Great. Before I move on to the next question, sorry, Roz, did I interrupt you?
No, I was just going to say one thing real quick. Start an Instagram page and pull chef cannabis edibles from other different pages, and start being an influencer in the chef industry from a cannabis standpoint in your state, or a Facebook page. And that's where you can start having followers, as well as starting to have a whatever your brand is, create your brand under that IG name or that Facebook page, and you can start being an influencer from an edible standpoint. So that was it.
Wonderful. Well, before we get to the next question, for people that are in the class, I know people have been asking in the chat and interacting. Thank you, Eric, for commenting and helping people out. If you want to raise your hand, we will put you on so that you can talk live with Roz and Eric and David and get your questions answered in a more interactive manner. So we probably will have time if, one or two people here want to do that before we end. But let me jump to the next question. Oh, this is an interesting one, and I bet there's a model here. This is Teresa Little, and she is saying, I am a medical billing specialist. How do I find my niche or expertise, or how could I use my expertise for this industry?
Pick me. I got you. I got you, girlfriend. I got you. Yes. Anyone that's in the medical industry, and if you're in billing, these physicians have some of it is a cash business, but they take credit cards to get to have folks come in that want a medical marijuana card, or that want their recommending that need a recommendation from a physician. But let me tell you something. In the industry, you have to have a separation of your practice. So if you have a physician who has a practice, and that practice is currently taking Medicare and Medicaid patients as well as insurance patients, his cannabis practice is going to be totally separate. Therefore, he may not need you to do all the billing parts that you would do for a regular practice, but he needs someone to help him manage his medical marijuana practice. So what I would suggest, not only to do billing, but say, listen, I can do your billing, I can do your marketing, and I can help. And if you can't do it, you can outsource it, and you give a package deal. You charge him X amount of dollars per month to do it. And then you make sure that his money is coming in. You make sure that you're helping to get new patients in, as well as you helping with the back office if you need to. But you can literally walk yourself into a really good gold mine. So I would definitely encourage you to go reach out to physicians who are supposed to be with recommended physicians in your area for the medical marijuana program, and get to know them, introduce yourself, and have your flyer, have your business name, have your brand, be able to have a 30-second elevator pitch. This is a business, so don't flounder. Elevator pitch. Hi, my name is Roz McCarthy. I'm with Medical Cannabis Business Billing Incorporated. I want to introduce myself and let you know I can help you with your billing. I can help you with your back office and your marketing. I can help you grow your business and make sure that your patients are satisfied and help you stay organized. Something like that, a quick 30-second. I kind of fluffed it up a little bit, but I just want to tell you how quickly you have to talk off the tongue to be able to have that conversation with someone who will then say, wow, she knows what she's talking about. I need her.
A great source of referral doctors. If you can't find doctors, you might be doing medical billing for home healthcare institutions, and they are dealing with doctors all day, every day. And so some of your existing clients might be able to refer you to the doctors and physicians that you're looking to actually do medical billing for.
Exactly.
And what I add to that as well is you have a unique opportunity to become the physician network, and you hire doctors and you handle the billing, you bring them onto your platform. I mean, listen, doctors want to be involved in this, but doctors don't have time to try to create a completely separate new practice. And so you are offering them a solution by bringing them a turnkey system to where it brings in, patients, it takes care of the billing and so on, and they can now generate revenues based off of this new model that you're bringing to them. And you can sign up several doctors. You can become that particular hub. This is what they're doing here in states like Florida. There are physician networks out there that certainly weren't started by folks who are physicians, but they're handling the management side of it so that the physician doesn't have to. All the physician has to do is see patients and collect his paycheck. And so the more you can provide that niche, that service, you'll be able to create a space for yourself.
Smart.
Wow, sounds like
Eric, that's so important. I think you nailed it. And making sure that know that some states have nurse practitioners. So if you have a state that allows nurse practitioners to make recommendations, they're even easier to go and approach, and they will, and it's less money in regards to how much you have to pay them for their time. So something to think about. I mean,
and it doesn't even have to be a medical practice that sees patients and, makes recommendations or prescriptions. If your state allows for, say a chiropractor to integrate, the CBD oils into their massage, so on, create this system that allows them to implement this new piece to their puzzle without having to go and learn a whole lot, without having to go and spend a whole lot of money doing XYZ. You create and build that system and you take it to them. And I think they will find that very, very attractive, because doctors want to participate, but they are so busy right now trying to keep the lights on and keep, customers and patients coming in, that they don't have a whole lot of time to spend to learn the business side of this industry, to do all of the other things. And you, as a medical biller, this is what you do. So, it's taking that skill and just transferring it to this industry.
Exactly. Okay,
wow.
Charles.
Wow,
next
sounds
question.
sounds like Teresa's sitting on a gold mine.
She is.
Absolutely.
Teresa called me.
A green gold mine. Wow. Okay, well, hey, this is one I think that's going to be in David's department. I'm a web designer, graphic designer, web developer. Is there any demand for those skills in the cannabis industry?
Yes, 100%. Our job is, we're in the communications industry, right? And so now you're going to be, you're able to connect to dispensaries who need to have websites, who need to have potentially, depending on regulations and rules, some have mobile applications, all of the above, online products, opportunities. So you need to get versed in what compliance issues look like around advertising and marketing in the marijuana and recreational marijuana industries. But yes, information dissemination. What we're planning, literally, when she wants to do the medical billing presentation to the doctor, we put the presentation together for her, right? we're the same people that will build out her website and make sure that she has the communication and resource tools. So all you're doing is making a shift, if you will, to be inclusive of this type of information. Or this type of distribution of information to this particular segment of the audience. So absolutely, you and again, look at the market. Look at all of the components that revolve around the industry itself. Every one of them, whether they are large scale, they're giant corporations that's coming into the industry. You could go to them as a freelancer. There are, and depending on your skill sets, there are small businesses. There are security firms. Every one of them needs a brochure or presentation in the emerging markets, especially in brand new places. They all have to do information dissemination. So that's what you do. Change your language just a little bit, add that component, and become the thought leader, if you will, in cannabis marketing.
And, I will say I've also seen a few marketing companies who have had some success by picking a very niche market to be able to own, if you will, whether it be the veteran community, whether it be minority community, and being that particular marketing, because there are a lot of folks in marketing and everybody has their different approaches to it and so on. But the more you can even create a niche of saying, you know what, I uniquely have a way of connecting with this community, you'll find that folks will gravitate to that as well.
Right. You may have to add a social media component to what you do. So you can imagine in a competitive market like Colorado, where you got hundreds of dispensaries, right? Or California, every one of those people are looking to outdo each other to attract patients, all of the above. And so you need to have a unique selling proposition that gives them the ability to show their unique selling proposition, if you will, to their client base. And the lowest cost of acquisition to get a client is the 2 to 4% return that you're going to get in social media. So you've got to have a great way to sell cannabis from a state and from a federal standpoint on behalf of your clients. So SEO, social media, website, all of that goes hand in hand. It should be a natural, organic opportunity for you to grow your business.
Wow, another great answer. I think we've got time for one more question. It's a similar question, but completely different. And I love the ideas you guys are giving. So let me try this one. We've got Tyree. I can't pronounce his last name. So we'll have Tyree asking, how can I use my transportation business in the green rush? So I assume he's got some sort of a trucking company or some sort of distribution business. Not sure who wants to take.
Do we know what state he's in?
He didn't. I don't know what state he's in. No, but maybe give some examples of.
Well, go ahead, Ross.
No, I was just gonna say a lot of it depends on the state, Eric, and just following your but I would say if you're not the quickest answer, I would say is delivery, but maybe that's not it. But let me tell you something, guys. These companies and these organizations, these cultivators, has anyone ever thought about waste management? Mm-hmm. Have you thought about that, where you take the waste of the product and you truck that out? So you got to think about trucking and transportation is so critical, and think about what, and maybe if you can, this is what we can do. And if you need a support, if you want to talk to a cultivation owner or manager or a dispensary manager or a manufacturing process manager, ask them questions. Say, listen, do you have any transportation issues or needs? What are those needs? I want to learn more. I have a transportation company. And you'll be surprised. There's things like they may have to pick up delivery of equipment twice a week. That you get a $2,000 a month contract to do that for them. So, and just think, as the market starts to grow, you are going to see that some of the mature cultivators, the mature processors, and the manufacturers, they are making money hand or foot. Those ones that you want to go to, and you don't want to go and ask business in regards to, I want to partner with you growing. You want to partner with them on the ancillary business, on the supplier diversity, and say, hey, you got a commitment to supplier diversity, or do you have a supplier chain? Or, hey, I have a trucking business, and I would love to work with you guys. What are some of your trucking or transportation needs? And that's what I would start out with.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say, definitely check your state laws as well, because different states your access point is going to be different. So like in a state like Florida, where we're vertically integrated, you have to be a part of the licensing organization in order to even, put it in your truck. So it would be, more of a, because we have the vertical integration. Whereas in other states where it's horizontally integrated, there may be a separate license just for transporting. And, some states have rolled it out that way. So I think it's important to understand your state laws, also understand, the entire cycle, what is the entire cycle from seed to sale? And in that, where are the transportation needs? Before I can cultivate hemp or cannabis, I got to get seeds. So logistically, I have to get that from somewhere, and it has to come into a port. Well, I got to get it from the port to my farm, and so those are the things that we have to consider. Once I've harvested it, perhaps my storage facility is not on the same location as my cultivation site. And so I got to get it from that point to the next point. And so you have to understand the entire, cycle that, this whole thing goes through, and then look at where the needs may, potentially be. And I would say, offer something more than just being able to take something from point A to point B. Offer a logistics system. Offer them, a system of how to, integrate all of it through efficiency, keeping costs down. How are you going to save them money? Because again, people don't hire you because, you just happen to have a truck. They hire you because you can service and, provide for a particular need that they have. So.
Smart.
Awesome. It's awesome. So you guys, it's 2:03. I want to thank you so much. Thank you, Dave Beckford, for just sharing and giving us insight about yourself and how you've been able to leverage advocacy. Thumbs up to Missouri, and we hope that Amendment 2 passes on Tuesday.
We claiming it.
We claiming it.
We're claiming it, man. You don't work too hard now.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Time to reap the harvest.
Eric Range, thank you so much, my brother, as my co-host here. Any parting words, and we'll sign off with Eric. You guys have a beautiful weekend. Eric, our parting words, anything you want to leave everybody?
All I say is spend some time with your family this weekend, love them, and don't forget why we all started this whole thing. It's about, economic stability for ourselves and our families and our communities. This is more than just about making money for our communities. This is about creating sustainability long-term. So love you all. See y'all next week.
See you next week. Thank you, guys. Blessings.
Thank you.